Years ago, I won a subscription to ESPN the magazine, and I remember in one of the editions reading about Larry Nassar, the gymnastics doctor who molested young women and underage girls. His case was especially unique because normally in a case of sexual abuse or assault, the minor's parents aren't also in the room many of the times. Not to belabor this story, but when you're done reading it, you're left wondering how the hell it happened, not only once, but for years. And then you realize that in order for bad things to happen within a society, so not an attack from outside like, say, Pearl Harbor or 9/11, a lot of people on a societal level have to okay small incremental changes that move away from good and delve into bad, all the while living in a reality where denial is served for breakfast. A more historical example would be Hitler's rise to power in Germany, which happened over nearly a decade before he finally convinced his followers to gather up and then massacre on a genocidal level 12 million people, 6 million of which were Jewish. On this episode, we take a look at the storming of Capitol Hill, which is another chapter in the experiment of democracy that has been and will continue to be the United States. I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Wifi Water. In order to try to understand the events that took place on Capitol Hill this week, I found myself thinking from a more macro level. I was born in '87, which makes me 33 years young, and the following events have been the biggest of my life on a geopolitical, international, or even global level. First of all, I don't remember this, but it happened. The fall of the Berlin Wall. Late 80s, early 90s, that was a huge turning point. It affected my life, I'm sure somehow, I don't know, the butterfly effect. Then there was 9/11. I was a freshman in high school. It was my first couple days in high school. They wheeled the TV in, and I saw the towers fall. 2005, Hurricane Katrina. I was a freshman in college. And it wasn't so much the hurricane and what it did to New Orleans and the community of New Orleans, but it was really starting to understand also on the back of being in high school and turning 18 at the time of the Iraq War, that maybe the US government just isn't really going to show up for me. 2008 financial crisis. This basically summed it up. Between the banks and the government, I graduated college at one of the worst economic downturns in the nation's history and the world's history. 2012, Trayvon Martin, him being slayed by Jordan Zimmerman. 2016, Trump's election. 2020, storming of the Capitol building. But how did this happen? Well, we can start with Donald. Lindsay, why don't you tell us about your boy Donald?
I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office. And I'm a Republican, and he's not. He's not a conservative Republican. He's an opportunist. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and 25 or 30% of the people would still follow him because he gives voice to their anger and their frustration. But he's not fit to be president of the United States. He's disparaged women. He has an 80% disapproval rating among Hispanics. At the end of the day, he would be the most flawed nominee in the history of the Republican Party.
That was Lindsey Graham on Fox News in February 2016 before the 2016 election. We all know how Graham would sing a different tune about the Donald post-November 9th, 2016, so we don't need to belabor that. I could have picked 1,000 clips to show the difference of people's approach to Donnie before and after, but this one works. It also points to a larger part of Trump's rise, which is his ability to galvanize people around his every word, even and especially when he's lying. Trump has always lied. He lies so much that he's made the truth a vapid, vestigial remain of modern-day society. One of his lasting, harmful legacies will be the destruction of the truth and co-signing of conspiracy theories, both big and small. From denying climate change to contesting the Electoral College results, both when he won and lost, I worry he may have forever changed the way our society understands facts. Trump has also been more like a mob boss or mafioso than anyone else. He surrounds himself with loyalists and family members, will do anything to win even if it means corruption and bad business practices, and sees power as not a means to an end, but just the end, ultimate power over everything. And he's also been a racist since long before I was born. So it was the definition of gaslighting when people told me and others who objected to his comments on Mexicans shortly after coming down his "the emperor has no clothing" escalator that he wasn't saying anything racist or was in fact a racist. The truth is, we've always known who he is and have either chosen to fight against it, deny it, or support it. So while some may be shocked at the storming of the Capitol Hill, I for one was not in the least bit surprised. What do we think was going to happen from a Trump rally in Washington, D.C. that was to support Republican senators and their vote to contest Joe Biden's legitimate election? That's like being surprised the frat party next door threw a keg off the roof and accidentally crushed your Prius. Come on now. His words on that day before the storming of the Capitol was the follow-up to his stand down and stand by comments. Play dumb games, you win dumb prizes. It should also be understood within the context of this country, which has a long history of violence and hate from white supremacists and fringe groups who hate Jewish people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, immigrants, Muslims, government authority, and basically anyone who's not white, Christian, and male. This is nothing new. Trump was in many ways just a match for kindling that had been amassed for years and ramped up with the election of the first Black president. For me, the storming of Capitol Hill had been coming since Barack Obama took office and I was in college. And we saw the uptick of militia groups and hate groups almost eightfold. The storming of the Capitol building reaffirmed three things for me. One, police treat white violent protesters storming one of America's most historic and important buildings differently than Black peaceful protesters anywhere. Cue pictures of Colin Kaepernick kneeling and people saying he's disrespecting the flag, juxtaposed next to Confederate flags being ran through the halls of our Capitol building by people wearing swastikas. Two, Blue Lives Matter isn't real. It's not about blue lives because, well, these Blue Lives Matter folk, they killed a police officer. It's about power and white supremacy. It's about the creation of a counter movement to Black Lives Matter to balance out the advocation for Black humanity. Blue Lives Matter isn't a thing, so please stop saying it. Being a cop is a career choice. Being Black is everyday life for millions of citizens of this country and many around the world. And finally, and maybe most importantly, number three, it's all a distraction. It was a distraction from his most recent call in Georgia, where he made his Ukraine call asking for collusion look like Chuck E. Cheese. It takes away from the fact the Dems now control the Senate. It takes away from the woman who saved the Democratic Party, Stacey Abrams. It also takes away from the abhorrent decision to not charge any cops in Jacob Blake's paralysis shooting. But where do we go from here? If Trump is not removed from office with the same expedience that Amy Coney Barrett was added to the Supreme Court of the United States, then what the fuck? Don't worry, I'll label this explicit. If he's not removed from office, then what's the point of the 25th Amendment? What could be more unfit than encouraging a violent riot in Capitol Hill? If not the 25th Amendment, then why not impeachment? Now that his Twitter's been banned, who else is going to ban him on social media? And as we stand here in the final days of the Trump administration, we could blame the media, social media, conspiracy theories, but that's what Donald would do. He'd deflect and blame everyone under the sun, casting a shadow that has always sought to distract and keep eyes and ears on his tomfoolery. So let's take real responsibility and be accountable for our own individual diets. Now, I'm sure this season on the Wifi Water, we're going to talk about food, but what I'm talking to right now is the diet of what we consume, not just food, the media we choose to consume. Stop watching bad news. Stop watching dog shit news. When you watch cable news, you're paying them, both with your priceless attention and time that you can't get back, but you're giving them views that they then sell for ad credits, and that's how they get paid. Would you watch YouTube's, Instagram videos, or Facebook videos of Nazis? No. Then stop watching Fox News and actors who are paid to spread fear like Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and Sean Hannity. We also need to be more vigilant about the articles we choose to share on Facebook and social media, because conspiracy theories spread 6 times faster than factual content. And finally, returning to the Nassar case from this episode's intro, the most shocking aspect of the ESPN article was how many parents denied their children's cries for helps and pleas. One father denied his daughter's pleas from the age of 6 to around 16, and Nassar even convinced her parents that she was a liar. Upon realizing what he'd done by not listening to his daughter, he committed suicide. So let's show up and listen to our family and friends and believe them when they say they're not feeling safe or they're feeling disrespected. Imagine where the world would be if it listened to leaders like Colin Kaepernick and listened to why he was kneeling and not crucifying for the action of kneeling. As citizens of the U.S., we shouldn't be surprised by the storming of Capitol Hill. It's been a long time in the making, and yet we have the power to shape our future. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I believe it to be true. But this isn't done just by voting every once in a while. It's not done by putting up a black screen on Instagram because everyone else is doing it. And to paraphrase from Ian Shelby from episode 24, if your activism is performative, then it's bullshit. And we don't have time for bullshit. So let's not get complacent. It's not time to think, okay, Joey B and Kamal are in office, we Gucci, we good. No. The work to close the wealth gap for communities of color, address food insecurity, engage and tear down all levels of systemic and institutional racism, improve upon public education and offer free higher education for anyone seeking it, ensuring healthcare for all, getting citizenship for all dreamers, reuniting all separated families, forgiving all student debt, abolishing the Electoral College, and tearing down all forms of voter suppression, cutting down on our defense spending, and potentially, and most importantly, tackling climate change, all of these challenges are in the future. So the work has just begun. And I know this sounds like a dream, but maybe I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Am I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wifi Water, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Wifi Water Podcast. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.